Yeah, so I was telling it is again basically leading to division in signals, which basically uh, gets its strength divided and the signal becomes weak. This can mean that a signal may be received from a transmitter even though it may be shaded by a large object between them. मतलब ट्रांसमीटर से ट्रांसमिट किया है, रिसीवर पे पहुंच भी रहा है, बट जितना ओरिजिनली जिस स्ट्रेंथ के साथ जिस पावर के साथ हमने भेजा है वो उस पावर के साथ उसको नहीं मिल रहा है, क्योंकि बीच में ऐसा कुछ एक बोलते हैं ना शार्प एज आ गया या शार्प ऐसा cut mila, because of which the signal got divided. So that is called as diffraction, and because of which the signal is divided and hence the strength of the signal is not same anymore. Diffraction is more pronounced when the obstacle becomes sharper and more of a knife edge. जैसे हमने देखा ना नाइफ कैसे एकदम शार्प होता है, so नाइफ से कैसे एक चीज दो उसमें कट जाती है, so ऐसा कोई शार्प एज मिलता है, then only the diffraction takes place, which also reduces to loss of signals. Next is shadowing. Shadowing is nothing but a blocking of a receiver by a large object from the sender. The higher the frequency of the signal, the more it behaves like the light. मतलब shadowing is nothing but you are trying to block that signals. जो भी signals आ रहे हैं आप उसको block करने का try कर रहे हो with a bigger object placing in between the sender and the receiver. The higher the frequency of a signal, the more it behaves like a light. यानी even though you are sending a radio signal, लेकिन अगर बहुत high frequency आप से आपने भेजा है, so it will act like a light signal only. Even small obstacles like a simple wall, a truck on the street, or trees in an alley may block the signal. मतलब it is not necessary that it has to be something related to radio objects only. It can be a truck, it can be a wall, it can be trees, it can be anything that acts as an obstacle in between from transmitter to receiver. So even all these things makes the signal weak, because if it is hitting the surface it will be reflecting, and the first point only we saw that if it is reflecting, the strength of the signal reflected signal is weak compared to the original signal. So the next factor affecting is nothing but shadowing. Next we see refraction. Now as we have studied what is refraction, refraction occurs because there is a change in medium, and because there is a change in medium the velocity of that signal also changes. Refraction is bending of a signal as it passes from one medium to another. It causes degradation in signals as it passes from one medium to another. जैसे हमने देखा है कि बाहर एयर है, यहाँ पे वाटर है, so any signal which is traveling from air to water is refracting. Why it is refracting? Because there is a change in medium. So जितना speed air में होगा उतना ही speed water में हो ऐसा necessary नहीं है. So when it is changing its medium, it is also changing its velocity, because of which the strength of the signal also changes. Refraction causes degradation in signal strength and sometimes loss of communication in point-to-point links. So refraction के वजह से भी degrade होता है signal, and काफी बार ऐसा होता है कि वो completely lost हो जाता है. So it is not reaching from one point to another, which means it may be transmitted on the sender side, but it is not being able to receive on the receiver side. So refraction is also one of the factors that leads to loss of signal propagation. Next, we have multipath propagation. Together with direct transmission from a sender to a receiver, the propagation effects leads to one of the most severe radio channel impairments called multipath propagation. Multipath propagation में क्या होता है कि हम एक जगह से सिग्नल भेज रहे हैं, but there are many obstacles in between. Let's say there are material mediums, there are reflecting objects, there are refraction taking place, diffraction taking place, scattering that is taking place. So ऐसा multiple times अगर वो सिग्नल हिट हुआ है या रिफ्रैक्ट हो रहा है, कहीं पे डिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है, तो वो सिग्नल का स्ट्रेंथ वीकर एंड वीकर ही हो जाएगा. सो मल्टीपाथ प्रोपोगेशन की वजह से भी सिग्नल्स डिग्रेड होते हैं. तो जो सिग्नल्स हम सेंडर के साइड पे इतना स्ट्रेंथ इतने पावर के साथ भेजते हैं, बिकॉज लेट्स से यहाँ से हमने जो सिग्नल भेजा है वो किसी हिट हुआ, फिर दूसरे वापस किसी सरफेस पे हिट हुआ, फिर वापस कार पे हिट हुआ है, सो इट इज रिफ्लेक्टिंग, रिफ्रैक्टिंग, डिफ्रैक्शन. सो जो सिग्नल का स्ट्रेंथ बहुत अच्छा था ऑन सेंडर साइड, इफ यू सी द सिग्नल इज गेटिंग वीक ऑन द रिसीवर साइड. So it may happen that you are, see, sometimes when you are talking on the phone, first it is very clear, but sometimes when you're moving or the person you're talking to is moving around, so काफी बार आपको उसका आवाज clear सुनाई देता है and काफी बार voices cut होता है बीच बीच में. So why that happens? Because of all these things. Even though the signal transmitted from their side is very strong, very powerful, but because of these external factors, because of the factors which we studied right now, it may happen the strength of the signal becomes very weak on the receiver side. Hence, we may not be able to hear the other person very clearly. So these are the problems we faces when there is a signal propagation. So out of that, what we saw first was a reflection, that whenever we hit a surface, the signal is reflected. That reflected signal is always with low strength. Next, we saw scattering, because a material medium tend to divide the original signals into two or more parts. The entire power gets divided equally. Next is diffraction. Diffraction is similar to scattering. The only thing is diffraction takes place when we have a knife edge kind of object. For example, sharp edged mountains, जिसपे अगर signal आता है और वो edge से टकराता है, तो it gets divided into two. So because it is getting divided into two, इसका entire power, entire strength also gets divided into two. Next is shadowing. Shadowing is blocking the signal with the help of an heavier object, again because of which it reflects. टकराता है, वापस आता है, तो वो reflect हो जाता है, and the reflected signal is again weaker compared to the original signal. Next we saw is refraction. Refraction is changing of path due to change in medium. So because you're changing medium, obviously your velocity also changes. So it leads to degradation of the signal, यानी इसका strength बचता ही नहीं है. काफी बार ऐसा होता है that it may not be received at other end at all. And last we saw was multipath propagation. So multipath is nothing but you're trying to send a stronger signal on from the sending side, but at the receiver side it was very weak because it has been propagated multiple times. It has been reflected or diffracted multiple times. बहुत सारा obstacles आ गया है बीच में, because of which जो signal हमने पूरे strength के साथ भेजा था from sender side, receiver side पे वो बहुत weak हो जाता है. So these are the different factors because of which the signals may be lost or may not be received correctly at the receiver's end. Multipath propagation. Effects of mobility. As I said, channel characteristics change over time and location. जैसे मैंने बोला था, if you're moving from one place to another, the power of the signals may be fading. The strength of the signals may be weak. So इसके लिए क्या होता है, क्विक चेंजेस इन द पावर रिसीव्ड इज कॉल्ड अ शॉर्ट टर्म फेडिंग. यानी आप एक एरिया से दूसरे एरिया में आ रहे हो, आपका सिग्नल फटाक से ड्रॉप हो गया है, तो इसको शॉर्ट टर्म फेडिंग बोलते हैं. लॉन्ग टर्म फेडिंग इज वो ऊपर नीचे थोड़ा थोड़ा होते रहता है, एंड देन आफ्टर अ व्हाइल इट इज गिविंग यू डिस्टर्बेंस. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज लॉन्ग टर्म फेडिंग. सो ये सब चेंजेस जो होता है ये मल्टीपाथ प्रोपगेशन में क्यों होता है? मोस्टली बिकॉज ऑफ मोबाइलिटी. एज आई सेड, मोबाइलिटी इज नथिंग बट मूविंग फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर, because you have been not constant on a single place, because the things or the objects are continuously moving, so it may lead to long term and short term fadings. Fadings का मतलब सिग्नल का धीरे धीरे लॉस होना. Next lecture onwards we'll study what is multiplexing.